Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and I'm super excited to get back into recording. It's been a hot minute since we did a general Oscar prediction episode anyway, and now we're diving into one of the really fun ones because we're diving into all four acting categories, and we are recording this on August 26th. Venice has not started yet. Not sure exactly when this video is getting out, so maybe there's been some news about those early movies, but we have no knowledge of that yet, so we're staking our claims before a lot of these major contenders are seen for the first time.
But we do have a few new trailers, and we have, probably from the last video that we've done, we've probably seen a few of the movies. I don't really remember everything, but today we got trailers for Hamnet, and we got trailers for Is This Thing On? Hamnet, I gotta say, I'm feeling a lot hotter on Hamnet than I have in the past for a few reasons. So just to outline that, looking back at Focus Features' previous contenders, there's a pattern that you can see. The only recent Focus film that has done Venice or New York was Tar, and every other Focus movie that hits the major awards at the end of the year does two festivals: Telluride, TIFF, Belfast, The Holdovers. Last year, what was the Focus movie last year? I'm blanking. Conclave, thank you. Promising Young Woman, weird year. That doesn't count. 2019, I think that Focus might have been missing that year. But since 2020, a more promising festival package for a Focus Features film is Telluride TIFF. And a big holdup I've had on Hamnet is I didn't know how a filmmaker like Chloe Zhao, someone who approaches things with a documentary-like style, would tackle a story set in Elizabethan England about Shakespeare. And what I needed to hear was her talking about it and reading the Vanity Fair interview about the film, as well as seeing the trailer, has me much more confident that Chloe Zhao has a handle on what she's doing. So I have basically across the board swapped out Begonia for Hamnet as my Focus Features representative.
I mean, my thoughts on the Hamnet trailer pretty much are my same thoughts from before. It looks like that old school style of typical Oscar bait contender, and that trailer really gave me like Weinstein era Top Dog vibes, which can be seen as both a positive and a negative. It's exactly the stuff we think the Academy will eat up, but what we've seen recently is that's not exactly the stuff they have been wanting to eat up. So I still have this performing the same as before, getting a few texts, contending maybe for a lead actress nomination, but ultimately missing out on that screenplay, director, and picture combo. But like you said, Focus, this is the path they typically send their contenders. And by this time this video is out, maybe we have heard reactions of Begonia and people say it's great, but it's still too weird, or maybe it's a step down from Yorgos, from Poor Things, from The Favorite, and it's more that kinds of kindness type of feel in terms of reception. And Hamnet ultimately is their top dog at the end of the day.
But here's the thing. Yes, it looks like one of those old-fashioned Oscar bait movies, but with a filmmaker as artful as Chloe Zhao behind it, is this the elevated Oscar bait that we talk about all the time?
It very well could be. The thing I keep going back to this, and it's something that I know you talk a lot about here on the channel, is Chloe Zhao had her breakout moment of Nomadland. Does that mean she needs to be around every time? And
No.
This, I think, is her first real test. Obviously, Eternals is not a movie that's going to correlate with Oscar voters. So this is the first time back around, and we'll see, will she kind of step into that Yorgos Lanthimos lane where if he has a film that works well enough, automatic nominations, it's getting in, it's a top 5 contender year in and year out? Or is it kind of a one and done sort of thing where it's going to be kind of in the realm of another Oscar nomination, but just not getting all the way there? And we can say that same sort of argument for the other trailer that we just got today as of recording for Is This Thing On? Bradley Cooper. And I'd like to say this trailer doesn't give as much comedic vibes as what we've heard in the lead up to this in terms of a plot description as well as that test screening a few weeks ago. The trailer, I think, looks pretty good overall. It doesn't look as grand as I kind of was hoping for it to be, but I still think that if this movie hits very well and it's delivering some brand new aspects that we haven't seen from Cooper as a filmmaker, maybe it's not a top 5 best picture contender, but maybe starts to able to like sneak it in as that number 10 contender, like what they tried to do with A Real Pain last year.
I'm so shocked that this is not like a Mike Birbiglia film who did Sleepwalk with Me and Don't Think Twice. He's a stand-up comedian, makes a lot of films about stand-up comedy that aren't necessarily like comedy films. But this looks really good. It looks very John Cassavetes. It looks very indie. I love that we're seeing Bradley Cooper step away from the like big, grand Oscar baity project. Honestly, I hope it's not an Oscar movie. I hope it's not. I hope that Bradley Cooper is kind of just going down his own path and wanting to just try something that might not need to be in the Oscar conversation or cloying for awards. That was everyone's problem with Maestro, is that it felt like he was begging people to award him. The best thing for Bradley Cooper's reputation is if he takes a break from trying to get an Oscar. And this looks like he's taking a break from that. So I'm very excited. I have not moved it up or down in any category. I am just keeping it exactly where it is.
Well, as you just said, he tried really hard to win that Best Lead Actor prize for Maestro. So why don't we dive inside of this year's Best Lead Actor contenders? And last time that we talked about acting, I took this category. So Matt, I think for the first time this year, I think this is your category.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. A lot of people have George Clooney winning. I have him out. Why is that? I feel like Jake Kelly is not as big as everyone says it's going to be. Yes, it has a great release date coming from Netflix, but it's also, I don't know, something about it doesn't feel 100% right to me. I mean, Marriage Story was a huge success, not because Noah Baumbach gets in every time. He doesn't. He doesn't get in all the time. He's gotten in one time for Marriage Story. And that's because that film was incredibly emotional. And I don't get that feeling from Jay Kelly. Jay Kelly to me looks like a 2010s Woody Allen movie. It looks like Blue Jasmine. It looks like Irrational Man. It just doesn't feel like an across the board contender to me. You know, there's so many similarities here to A Real Pain from last year, just in terms of the scope and the story. It's about two guys going across Europe, sort of revisiting old haunts and talking about life. And I still don't see why this has to be another Marriage Story for Noah Baumbach. Why can't this be another Greenberg? Why can't this be another Meyerowitz stories? Why can't this be another Frances Ha, Mistress America, When We're Young? It's obviously not white noise. I'll say that now. It's not white noise. But why does this have to be this major thing? Of course, yes, release date from Netflix is extremely promising. I just don't know if I can get on board with the path people are seeing. The talk of people saying it's going to win the Golden Lion hands down, and then it's going to go and get 10 nominations and 6 wins. Like, what are we talking about here? It's Noah Baumbach. That's never been Noah Baumbach. And so could George Clooney come along for the ride? Absolutely. I have him at number 6 because he is a very strong performer. He hasn't been in a role like this in quite some time, since Alexander Payne's The Descendants. And again, I know people are thinking Alexander Payne, Golden Lion, because George Clooney's in it and he'll like a movie like Jay Kelly. But like, very rarely does one person decide the entire award outside of obviously Juliette Binoche with It Was Just an Accident at Cannes, and last year with Isabelle Huppert and Pedro Almodovar. But like, I'm not going to predict that every time. I think it might be more democratic. People are going to be mad at me for this placement, and I don't care. I am riding on my Jay Kelly doubting train until we see those reviews, potentially by the time this video releases. Dyl, what do you think about Jay Kelly right now? Am I being insane with this? Or what's going on here?
I guess my stance on Jay Kelly at the moment is kind of somewhere in between where you're at and where it seems a lot of the community is at right now, because I do not think this has a shot at winning Best Picture, like a lot of people do think out there. I don't think it has a shot of winning multiple acting nominations. But I also don't think it will be a nothing burger at the end of the day. I think what we'll end up seeing is if this movie does connect on a level at Venice, maybe not The Lion, but it is a giant contender. We could see Clooney and Sandler kind of coexist in the categories in terms of getting nominations, but neither of them ever really jumping ahead of the other one in terms of wins. And then we can get to a point at the end of the year where if Jay Kelly is a Best Picture nominee, they both come along. But if we get to a point where maybe Jay Kelly falls out, Netflix goes with any of their other five major contenders, maybe we see a shot where one of them does end up missing because I think for the first time in a long time, this lead actor race is super, super deep. Like I know the year of Oppenheimer, they were talking like, oh my gosh, who's gonna miss? But still was really like six people for five spots. At least at this point, I think you could make a very solid argument for like eight plus people
Mm,
in lead actor.
I
And
can
that's
see up
even
to
considering
12 at this
or
point.
that's what I was about to say too, is you can even include some more out there with more crazier angles. But like looking at your list right now, I would say the biggest omission in terms of where the vibes are currently at would be with Michael B. Jordan and Sinners. While I do agree, I don't currently have him in. I feel like if Sinners ends up being this movie that everyone's trying to claim it to be, if Coogler is getting in for director, it's getting in for screenplay, he kind of has to come along too.
Does he? It's an action horror blockbuster. Do we need an acting nomination for that? Let's think of some comparables for past years. Dune is a great comparison. That has had zero acting nominations. I mean, the first Avatar movie is another big blockbuster movie, zero acting nominations. That was number two for Best Picture. The entire Lord of the Rings series, even when they swept, no acting nominations. I mean, there was one for Ian McKellen in the first film, but the third one that swept, nothing. There's plenty of examples of big spectacle blockbuster films with no acting nominations. And personally, I wasn't all that impressed by Michael B. Jordan. I know I am in the minority on that, as I am in the minority on all things Sinners. But right now, I mean, he'd be my number 11. Oh, Top Gun Maverick. That's another great example. Tom Cruise didn't come along for the ride, despite the fact that that was a very, very strong player as well. This is a type of movie that does not necessitate acting love to come along with it. And right now, I just don't see Michael B. Jordan's performance being above everything else I have listed here. Again, he is my number 11. Another one that I think a lot of people are going to be upset at me about is Jesse Plemons in Begonia. Like I said, Begonia I've moved down across the board. I think I still have it for one or two nominations. Jesse Plemons, I think, requires the movie to be a major across the board contender in order to get in, especially because we know Jesse Plemons is always very subdued in his performances. He's one of the most subtle actors out there right now. So I feel like the strength of the movie comes first for Jesse Plemons. So right now, if I have Begonia out, I have to have him out. How do you feel about that, Dylan?
I mean, it makes total sense if you don't have Begonia in picture. I don't really know why any of the acting nominees for that movie would really come along. And I would just say, going back to Michael B. Jordan for one last thing, I would say the best comparison you can really bring to this, and this does work inside your favor, would be Margot Robbie and Barbie. He could have the same outcome here where he hits almost every precursor. The movie's getting so much love, but the movie fizzles out at the end of the day. But I would say if Gerwig made it into director, I think that Robbie would have made it into actress as well. So I think that this year, if people are projecting Coogler to get into director, they probably should throw in Michael B. Jordan as well, because I think they're working 1A, 1B in tandem for making this film relevant on the award season race, as well as pushing it further, especially into some of those ensemble type prizes. Looking at your list, and if we throw in my list as well, I think you keep talking about people being annoyed or being upset at our list. There's a name that I have at number one and you have at number two. I think people will be more mad
Oh,
about
yeah.
than anything else.
I'll get to that in just one moment. Just on the Barbie thing, I disagree that Michael B. Jordan would get every precursor. He's not getting BAFTA. Not a goddamn chance. I mean, it was such a fluke that Robbie got BAFTA that year. I don't see a chance for Michael B. Jordan there. I think that he's iffy at SAG. He could get in at SAG. It's possible. Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, yes. I'll give him that, especially Golden Globe with split categories. I mean, I'd have to think about that actually. I'd have to think about that. I think that there's a chance that he misses the Golden Globe. I think that he is locked for the Critics' Choice nomination, though. But now let's get into the one that everyone's going to be mad about. Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? Because I sure fucking can. I see this year, I think that the race is going to come down to a 1-2 battle, the way that we often see these lead acting prizes come down to. And I think it's going to be Safdie v. Safdie. Timothy Chalamet, Marty Supreme. Timmy has been on a hot streak. Last year, he was the number two behind Adrian Brody. He won SAG last year. There's momentum behind him. And we didn't mention Marty Supreme's trailer. We have seen the trailer for Marty Supreme since our last recording. I feel great about this trailer. I think it looks fantastic. It looks like that crowd pleasing December big movie that we love to see every year. Mostly underperforms with wins, but usually grabs the nominations unless it's Babylon. But for the most part, movies like this end up getting those nominations at the end of the day. Timmy, though, I think has a strong chance of a win here. He has been building up this industry cred for years now. It is clear he is not a fluke. He is not a newcomer. He is here to stay. This guy is industry legend material at this point. He's going to win an Oscar at some point. Marty Supreme looks like a very strong movie in the Best Picture race. And when it comes down to, at the end of the day, again, I do think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson looks spectacular in The Smashing Machine. It looks transformative, not just because of the makeup, but because he's subverting his public persona. He's doing something that we have not seen from him before. I think he's going to shock a lot of people. I have a feeling that when we get these reviews out of Venice, out of TIFF, we're going to see a big headline be standing ovations for Dwayne Johnson. We're going to see people talking about, I had no idea he could do this role. But at the end of the day, I do feel like he, along with Adam Sandler, the nomination is the win. Dwayne Johnson could win a couple of precursors, but Timothée Chalamet is the industry golden boy right now. And that is what I think will lead to the win at the end of the day. But again, I think even having Dwayne Johnson top five is going to be controversial for some people. Some people are extremely adverse to putting The Rock in here. And look, I mean, I'm not a big fan of The Rock. I don't like his blockbusters. I think that he's a very silly person in how he has like a clause in his contracts for action movies that he cannot lose a fight. That's fucking crazy. But I think that the performance is going to be enough. I mean, Jared Leto had like 20 years of antics before winning for Dallas Buyers Club. Joaquin Phoenix had, I mean, that's not exactly comparable because everyone loved Joaquin Phoenix as a performer, but he actively was like, fuck the Academy Awards. I fucking hate you guys. And he still won for Joker. I don't necessarily think that if a performance is good enough, that someone's persona or how they present themselves is going to get that much in the way of a nomination or being win competitive.
I guess going back to the Mario Supreme trailer, I feel like I'm the only person in the world who was not like blown away with my jaw on the floor with it. It looked kind of how we have been talking about it for the last few months, where it has some shiny moments. It has the Safdie cinematography that isn't very easy on the eyes, but you get what they're going for. And Timmy looks like he's having a lot of energy inside the role. I'm hoping that the movie itself will be more fun and be more entertaining than what that trailer was for me, but I'm still super looking forward to it. But for Smash Machine, I agree with everything that you just said there about The Rock. I think that this year we will see the culmination of what would have happened if Austin Butler had at least one other role before Elvis. Would he have beat Brendan Fraser? But I mean, looking at our actor fives, I feel pretty good about both of these at the moment in terms like these people are going to get at least a precursor. But to my point earlier about this category being super, super deep, I mean, you go down the list here and like I don't even have Brendan Fraser in my top 10, but I think he's a very solid chance to get the nomination
Well,
for no
wait.
other choice.
So you don't have him top 10?
Not at the moment. I'm still a little
Bro.
wary on Rental Family. I think a lot of the buzz coming out right now is from one or maybe two people who have seen it at a test screening, and I think a lot of this buzz that
No.
we're getting for this movie right now is very equating to stuff that we had with like Saturday Night last year, where oh my gosh, so many people have seen it, they
Oh.
all love it. It's going to win TIFF. It's got so many screenings, and then I think there's a shot that this comes up a little bit short and it's back to where we expected earlier this year. I know that we've had this conversation about Hikari before. I think largely she's pretty unproven. The trailer, at least to me, and I know there's a lot of other people who feel this way too, looks really, really bad. And I think there's a shot that this is one of those films that people are really projecting hard at this moment, but come a month from now, post festivals, post TIFF, it's one of the big swings and misses of the award season.
I'm going to stand on business here. It's number two. This could be Coda. That's why I have him in my top five. I think that this wins People's Choice Award. This is Searchlight's push. They go all in on it. I, on the other hand, think that it looks delightful. It looks like the crowd pleaser of the year, in my opinion. So Brendan Fraser is a shoo-in for me. As much as I am not impressed by Jeremy Allen White's work in the trailers of Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere, I have the film in Best Picture. I feel like it can't be in Best Picture without Best Actor, without maybe a supporting actor and like a couple other categories. I have Deliver Me From Nowhere in five categories. I'm not altogether happy about having that, but whatever. I kind of am a little fingers crossed that the film underperforms at Telluride, but right now I have no reason to believe it will. Which brings me to number five, which is another one people are going to be like, are you insane? Lee Byung-hun, the South Korean actor, one of the stars of Squid Game, one of the more recent seasons. No Other Choice. Personally, I have No Other Choice being an across the board player. The trailer impressed the hell out of me. I think this wins the Golden Lion. Lee Byung-hun did win one of the TIFF tribute awards for performances. This year they did four of them, which is crazy. They did Channing Tatum, Nina Haas, Lee Byung-hun, and one other that I am blanking on right now. But of those four films, the one I feel best about is No Other Choice. And so I am pushing No Other Choice into the acting category. Normally, when these films from East Asia end up in the Best Picture race, Drive My Car, Parasite, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is another example, they have not historically ended up getting acting nominations. I think this could be different. This seems to be very, very centered on one performance, which seems to be big and outrageous and fun. So right now, that is my long shot of the five. People might say that I've got some other long shots in there too, but right now, I feel quite strong that he has a great chance if his movie hits the way that I believe it will. And of course, some people are going to be pissed about Leo being at number 8 here. I'm still not fully believing in One Battle After Another. Get back to me after September. We'll see when it releases. We will see what the reception to this one is, specifically with the box office and with Warner Brothers. Daniel Day-Lewis just had the trailer for Anemone come out. He looks very good in this. Do I think that this is going to be a strong player across the board? No. Do I think he gets a BAFTA nomination? At least a short list. And the last one I'll mention is Wagner Moura, the secret agent. The might of Brazil Twitter might be behind him. And do I think that's really going to matter? No, but I do think that he's worth mentioning for some critic prizes.
Well, I know there's a movie that a lot of people have super, super high up on their Best Picture and Best Actress list. So let's dive over to that category because it's a movie that both you and I don't have much faith in coming out this year, but that is Amanda Seyfried for Ann Lee. We just got an article about it earlier today, and if a studio does pick it up and wants to drop it this year, I think it would be a very, very direct approach. Something that we saw with Briarcliff last year with The Apprentice, where they specifically go for just the two actors and then potentially try to work in a makeup where they can. And I think that's kind of the route that we could see with Ann Lee if it does come out this year. I'm of that approach that it is going to be pushed to next year if someone does pick it up immediately after the Venice Film Festival. So that's why Amanda Seyfried is on my outside looking in. But I don't really have much movement in my top five. I still have the same five people, just in a little bit of different order. I have Renata Reinsva as my number one for sentimental value. Do I believe she is going to win? I'm not super convinced based off a lot of the reactions out there, but if Sentimental Value pulls in Anora from last year, where it is just the biggest movie of the bunch, then yes, I do think that she comes along with it. She gets the win. She's at the top of my list. Arrivo is someone who I think has the role to do it, but I think if she couldn't even win a precursor last year, it's going to be a little hard for her to even be in contention for a win this year. Jessie Buckley is quickly rising up the ranks of my list. The trailer today delivers of what we expected. Crying, stared into the camera, looking very committed into the role. Still, I have some reservations about the movie at large, but what we've seen from Focus in the past is regardless if you're their number one or their number two, they still put the time, they still put the energy into the campaigns. As long as Hamnet is not trashed that she can easily come along. And then the other one I want to mention real quick before I hand it over to you is Julia Roberts in After the Hunt. This is a movie that you and I have been pretty low on all season long. I still think this can kind of end up being like the May December sort of thing where it can get its actors, it can get its screenplay into the conversation. It's and at some shows it's out the others, but picture never really is in the cards. So that's why I currently have Julia Roberts as my number four in lead actress. And because unlike lead actress is pretty light. There's a lot of people we don't know their category placements at this moment. Emma Stone, leader supporting for Begonia. We don't know. Rebecca Ferguson, leader supporting for House of Dynamite. We don't really know. And a lot of these potential festival breakouts in terms of like TIFF and Telluride, their movies seem pretty DOA, like Christie, like Hedda. So like the five spot is really, really open. So Matt, I'm gonna leave it open to you because I'm assuming you had the same top four, just in a different order. Who's currently
Mhm.
your number five?
No, I don't have the same top four. I have dropped Julia Roberts. I've got Emma Stone. I've got Jodie Foster, rounding out Renata Reinsve, Cynthia Erivo, Jessie Buckley. I'll get back to that. I want to tackle Amanda Seyfried in the Testament of Anne Lee because people are going to be pissed at us over this. Again, a lot of people are going to be pissed at us over the acting categories. This is not The Brutalist. And we cannot predict another The Brutalist to happen, especially not from the same team. But last year, we had a very valid reason at this point not to predict The Brutalist widely, which is that films that do not have distribution going into the Venice Film Festival rarely release in that calendar year. I went back through the last like 10 years, and on average, the English language films that do not have distributors going into Venice, only one, maximum two of those end up being distributed before the end of the year. The Brutalist is a rare exception of a film that is bought during the Venice Film Festival, releases that calendar year, and then ends up being a major awards player. Most of the time, it's stuff like Origin, which kind of goes nowhere and they release it for 1 week and it just disappears. Or if a film goes into the festival with no distribution, it's bought by the end and then it releases in the springtime. Most of these distributors, unless something major happens, they have decided their slates at this point this year. They are not waiting on things. The Brutalist was a special exemption to this rule because it was a 3.5 hour long, completely unmarketable film. If The Brutalist did not have The Brutalist's reviews, it would have absolutely released in May of this year in a very small theatrical rollout because no one in their right mind would have taken a 3.5 hour long art film about an architect unless it had the chance to be a major Oscar contender. Anne Lee is a regular length movie. There's no feasible reason why someone would look at this and go, this is unmarketable. So in that case, why does it not have distribution yet? There's no reason logically. They have a relationship. Brady Corbet and Mona Fastfold have a relationship with Sony Pictures Classics, A24, Focus Features, Neon. They have relationships. They have screened this film for those distributors almost 100%. Why have they not picked it up yet? Again, the Brutalist had an excuse of its length. This doesn't have an excuse. And why is it not at New York? The Brutalist was at New York. Why is this not at New York? You can make an excuse for Begonia not being at New York because Focus Features does weird things with New York. They never go to New York except with Tar and Anemone this year. Anne Lee has no distributor. Why do they not want it going to a festival that was a huge platform for The Brutalist last year? Everything is a red flag for the Testament of Anne Lee right now. It's not releasing this year. And if it is, it's not going to be a big thing.
I pretty largely agree. I mean, I was a doubter of Brutalist coming last year, even after the reviews. I thought the runtime was going to keep it out, and Corbet's insistence on the format, due to the fact that that format was largely pretty impossible to pull off, and A24 still didn't do it the way that he wanted, but they did the best they could. Obviously, it doesn't sound like they're asking for that same thing here with Anne Lee, but there could be a multitude of reasons why it's not hitting other festivals. But I guess we'll have to find out here within the week when it screens. My bigger question with the fifth slot here is every contender here I think has one massive red flag, and it's
Hmm.
to you. Which red flag matters the least to you? We have Christie and Hedda, two films that seem like TIFF throwaways that no one thinks about after the festival
Yeah.
ever again. You have Ann Lee, which has no distributor. You have Die My Love, which is skipping all the fall film festivals because apparently it is being re-edited. Then you have stuff like A House of Dynamite, which no one has seen yet. Do we know if Ferguson's lead it? Do we know if she's supporting, or do we know if this is even a Netflix awards contender at large? And then you come down to people who I just don't see the appeal for them getting an Oscar nomination, like Rose Byrne, which seems like the year in, year out thing that people try to predict in January and they hold all year long and it never comes to fruition. It's just like, what is the fifth slot this year? And part of me wants to cop out and be like, well, it's just Emma Stone and Begonia, but I don't want to switch on Emma Stone being supporting like we've been talking about all year long because the movie screens in 2 days. So like
Right.
my fifth slot here, I'm just not really sure what I want to go with. I get the Jodie Foster shout from you because I think that is a good one if Sony Pictures can pull it off. It's just the way that people talked about that movie at Cannes seemed like it would be something that no one would ever talk about again. I know Sony's really good at making those movies that no one would ever talk about again come back around. I don't know if this is one that they can really pull off.
But look at the festival run that A Private Life has. TIFF,
Yeah.
New York, it's showing up. Jodie Foster, I think she was the other. Yep, she's the other TIFF tribute nominee. That's it. Jodie Foster speaking French. There's your narrative. Sony Pictures
It,
Classics. What else do they
it is
have?
a
Nothing.
it is a great narrative. It's just usually with SPC movies, there's at least people who try to say like these things are great when they originally screen. And at least, unless I'm misremembering, I feel like all the talk of people at Cannes was like, "This is boring. I don't
Yeah,
like this." She does
that
her
was.
best, but this movie's ass.
It wasn't so much this movie's ass. It was just I'm gonna forget about that movie tomorrow. But this is the Academy that nominated Naiad.
Hey, Naiad's good. Um, you know what? You know what? You talk about Naiad, Netflix, even if their movies aren't strong, why not take a shot here? Pre-screen, I'll put Ferguson for A House of Dynamite at my number five. She was in the
That's
very
so
first still that we
bold.
got. But like, if A House of Dynamite is somewhat of a contender, Netflix, we know, can get their number three, their number four, their number five options into specific categories. And if you had to guess for A House of Dynamite, what would be its strongest pushes? You would probably say screenplay. You'd probably say whoever is the lead
I
character
don't think
inside the
there is a
film.
lead. I think it's an
There might
ensemble
not
piece.
be a lead, but I feel like everyone else, at least in my opinion, just has a bigger red flag, while this one is just more so of an unknown. I had Lawrence in, but then we got the announcement of New York and Tiff's final lineups, and that film is
Hmm.
not there whatsoever. You can safe to assume it's not going to Telluride either. That was one of the reasons why I kept the movie alive after Cannes. Like premiere didn't go as great, but they're still going to hit the fall film festivals. They're going to get the film visibility, but clearly they're not doing that. And I think there's a shot that this movie may get pushed. It's not going to keep that release date in October because if they're
It's
still editing
possible.
it, this is a film that I feel like needs additional festivals.
They just announced that it's playing in competition at San Sebastian in Spain. Missing TIFF, missing New York. That's a bad sign. Just to go over some things quickly, because we didn't really touch much on Renata Reinsve. The biggest argument against her right now is that clearly Neon sees Stellan Skarsgård as the main focus of their push for the film. I mean, the poster, he is the main face, and Rana Reinsve is smaller. And, that's not inaccurate, despite the fact that I am 100% positive that she goes lead and he goes supporting. She is strong enough in the film to win, even though they will push him more. But I will say, I'm starting to come around to the idea that Jesse Buckley could be a sweeper.
If Hamnet is for real, I fully can see that happening. I think what we're gonna see in this lead actress category is what we kind of see most years is whoever's the strongest film at the end of the day is going to end up winning the category. If Jesse Buckley is sweeping, that Hamnet ends up being a top four, type three movie, sort of similar to what we saw with Poor Things a few years ago, and with Emma Stone ended up winning that category. And I think that we could follow that up this year, whether that is with Buckley, if that is with Reinsva, if that is oddly enough like Julia Roberts or someone completely else. I think that this is going to be a very fun category this year, and I think that this might have the most variance in terms of winners that are precursors, at least this far in advance of our four acting categories.
Also, I think you're underrating Rose Byrne in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. She could be the Andrea Riseborough of this year. I feel like there's a lot of people in the industry that really love Rose Byrne. She has won 2 out of 3 of the major festival prizes. The way that A24 has positioned this film as their biggest festival contender, it played Sundance, Berlin, Telluride, TIFF, New York. That's an insane lineup of festivals that this movie has done. She is the indie push of the year, and who knows, maybe she's the small performance that could, especially in a category as fractured as this.
This category is so wide open that if Ferguson is not lead, if Lawrence, Sweeney, Thompson, Seyfried, Foster all don't come to fruition, right there, number 5, it's open.
Moving over to supporting actress, and this is where I fear for my safety because for the first time this year, I have moved Ariana Grande to number 2, and I've moved Elle Fanning up to number 1. And I've done that for a couple of reasons. For one thing, sentimental value continues growing. If this is winning across the board, the way that I believe it is, picture, director, supporting actor, actress, screenplay, editing, then why would Elle Fanning not come along? She is the one American performer in this film, has a lot of industry love stateside, which means that I think her presence in the film is going to push a lot more people to watch the movie, especially younger people who might not check out a Norwegian film like this, might be compelled to see it because of Elle Fanning. I have a feeling at the end of the day, when we get to those precursors, we're going to see a battle between Fanning and Grande. And I think Grande takes Golden Globe, maybe Critics' Choice. I think Elle Fanning takes BAFTA. And I think she takes SAG. I think the Screen Actors Guild is going to fall head over heels for Elle Fanning. So to me, that's the split that we see. I think it's going to be neck and neck. Ariana Grande is that safe number 2, has been a safe number 1 because we know what to expect from the performance. We've seen her work in the first film, and we know that she has more material to work with in Act 2. You just rewatched Wicked on Broadway this weekend. You can attest to Glinda has more to do in Act 2.
Yeah, she has a lot more to do, and she brings a very different side to the character. And while I may have expressed my disdain for the Broadway show numerous times here on the channel, I fully believe that Chu and Grande and Arriva, for that matter, are going to one up what a lot of people love and adore from the stage version and bring their own to the character. And I think that if Wicked is this big film that we're expecting again, and last year, really the only roadblock for her was a career narrative, I think Grande could have clean sailing this year to win, but I do agree that her top competitor right now would be Elle Fanning, and I do like that now, like 2-3 months removed from Cannes, you've kind of flopped on Fanning, where before you're like, I don't really know, and now she's up at the top, because I do think that she, like you said, has so much cred from both stateside as well as people worldwide from her work as a child, as well as what we saw last year, getting these random nominations for a complete unknown and the lead up to the award season for that. And I think this year it could be her big shining moment where if Sentimental Value is this gigantic Best Picture winning film like you are predicting, I can totally see a avenue for her to clean sweep the season.
Moving past Elle versus Ariana, I at this moment have Emily Blunt at number 3 for The Smashing Machine. And largely what that comes down to, I think her work in the trailer is quite impressive. While this is sort of falling into the classic archetype that we see of the long-suffering wife of a fighter. We've seen so many of those roles. So many of them have been nominated. I think the thing that makes this one a little bit different is apparently in the story of Mark Kerr, his wife was dealing with her own addiction at the same time that he was getting clean. She could be doing something a little bit more from what we expect of this archetypal role of the long-suffering wife of a boxer. I'm leaving you and I'm taking the kids. I expect that line to be somewhere in any of these movies. And on the other safety side, I've got Gwyneth Paltrow, who looks to be a major part of Marty Supreme. Looks like she is having a lot of fun sort of subverting expectations of her place in Hollywood at the moment. Let's get a vagina-scented candle in the Oscars gift bag this year.
That's a fun thing with supporting actress this year is that we have a plethora of people across so many different films that you can kind of plug and play into this because I think that we will return to the double supporting actress or supporting actor from a film this year with sentimental value. But then you also have people from like Rental Family or After the Hunt or even Sinners and Jay Kelly plugging an additional acting nomination into this category. The last category we talked about, we have so many people here that you can kind of use. And I mean, there's some crazy people online that currently have Amy Madigan in their top 5 of the category. So like supporting actress is going to be an interesting one this season.
Well, I want to address Amy Madigan because we can't write off the possibility of this. I don't think the hype for Weapons is going anywhere. Like I think that this is going to stay till the end of the year. We will still be talking about Weapons at the end of the year, largely because of Amy Madigan. There's clearly been industry support for her. People love her. She is one of those performers that has always been around, never gotten her flowers. This is an incredible role in a horror villain role. There is an avenue for her to be nominated. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say there's an avenue for her to win, as some people have, but I don't think it's impossible. Honestly, my opinion on Weapons and how it does depends on what happens with one battle after another. There is an angle for Amy Madigan to climb up in the ranks. I think she'll do very well with critics. It's just right now, does Warner Brothers absolutely not focus on that movie whatsoever?
This is entirely kind of like what I was talking about with Rose Byrne earlier. I don't see a world where this happens at any televised precursor for the film in a picture category, the film in a screenplay category, or her in supporting actress. I think this starts and ends maybe with regional critic groups that we see with some of these horror type films year in and year out, where people really want to happen. Think about Toni Collette in Hereditary, someone else who had a long history of being in acclaimed films, who was a previous Oscar nominee. But at the end of the day, it's not a priority for the studio. I mean, if Warner didn't already have Sinners, maybe this would be a different conversation, but they already have one horror movie to work with.
Yeah.
Why would they try to divert from their top dog with another one which doesn't have the domestic appeal at the box office, is doing about the same worldwide, but I would say doesn't have the zeitgeist in the same way?
I think you're writing it off a little too quickly. I do think Weapons has a good chance at a WGA nomination with the year in, year out disqualifications that happen. Critics' Choice could possibly go out for it in a couple of categories, but we're going to have to see. Again, it's all going to depend, I think, on one battle after another. But to go back to some of the other ones in the category, Inga Ibsdottir Lilius for Sentimental Value. This is critics, BAFTA, and that's what pushes her in. I think that she'll miss Critics' Choice and SAG, although I think that the ensemble will be nominated and potentially win at SAG. I don't think Lilius will make it in there. I feel like she's a skin of her teeth nomination at the end of the day, but the film being so strong, we get a double nomination in the category. Mari Yamamoto, Rental Family. I feel weird on this one because in the trailer, the little girl seems to be the one who's doing a lot more in the movie, but I don't know her name. So I'd love to have her somewhere in this lineup. I do not know the name of that child, but Mari Yamamoto is sort of a stand-in for someone from Rental Family here. And earlier in the year, I was really against Iowa Debris' part in After the Hunt because, you know, she really doesn't factor into much of the movie, but the scenes that we saw in the trailer were impressive, undoubtedly. I think it's worth including her in the top 10, even if I don't think that she'll make it at the end of the day. We've talked in the past, Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners. I think we can't write off Haley Steinfeld for Sinners either.
I guess the mid-season awards gave the award to Steinfeld, which, I mean, I guess I get she's the bigger name, but I feel like when that movie came out, the more talk was for Wumi. General reviews or people talking about the film, they're talking about that performance more than Steinfeld. So,
I
I mean,
actually
I guess when we
disagree.
get
I've
in,
seen more people talking about Steinfeld. But that said, this would be the equivalent of Adam Driver getting that nomination for Black Klansman with none of the other cast.
I could see it happen. It's just, it would be crazy that if she would be the one to get in, but I would assume if she's getting in, that probably also means Michael B. Jordan's in, Del Rendo's in. It's getting all these above the line
Yeah,
nominations. she's
No.
like a coattail type nomination, not the sole representation.
Like I said before, I don't think Sinners needs acting. And if it does, it's Miles Caton, but I don't have any of them in at the moment. I think our major difference that we have here is you are still standing on Emma Stone being supporting while I have her lead.
If she does move to lead, that makes my lead actress category a little bit easier because I would easily just slot her in to that open fifth spot that I have. From what we talked about all season long, we made the case for her being supporting. We've seen no new news for the movie to really change that tone, at least
Oh,
for me so far.
we have. There was the Vanity Fair article that very clearly said that she was a main character.
You could say that same thing about like The Favorite.
The Favorite is actually a great comparison because who is the main character of that movie? Emma Stone. Who is the lead? Olivia Colman. And we could
Mhm.
see the same thing with Begonia. Who is the main character? Jesse Plemons. But who does it all center around? Emma Stone. Anyways, let's move to that last category here, supporting actor. So take us away, Dylan.
Supporting actor is one that I feel like will be one of these categories where each time we talk about, we're not going to have much new information at the top of our list. Stellan Skarsgård, Adam Sandler are still 1 and 2 for me. Skarsgård, people have seen, people have raved. It has the career narrative. It has the size of the film inside of awards season. It has everything that you need for a supporting winning performance. And Sandler, at least from what we've heard from test screenings and people who have talked about the movie early on, seems to have the stuff that you need for a nomination, but not quite a win just yet. And then my 3, 4, and 5 are still Jonathan Bailey and Jude Law at 3 and 4. I know I'm one of the few people out here that currently have not just one, but both of these people in. After rewatching Wicked on Broadway the other day, Bailey does not have as much to do in the second act as I had remembered him to do, but I'm assuming with the extra 45 minutes to an hour that they're adding inside of the movie, and with his prevalence inside the trailer, they're going to give him a few more things to do. And we saw last year him get that additional nomination at SAG, and that could expand if this film is the equal, if not bigger, this upcoming award season. And Jude Law is my same case from every other month. He's playing Vladimir Putin. We've seen the Dog Branch go hard for these anti-Russia films year in and year out. So we could see the acting categories kind of do the same thing as long as this movie does release this year. It's kind of that same situation as Ann Lee, but I think more so unlike Ann Lee, this could easily fit in someone's schedule because you can just slate it for a very small release. This does not need a huge mega, and it could easily even be a streaming movie if someone like Amazon or Netflix does
Mhm.
pick it up.
And unlike Anne Lee, there's a reason why The Wizard of the Kremlin does not have a distributor, which is that it is a French production. They weren't shopping it around to American production companies or distributors. This was produced in the studio system in France, whereas Anne Lee was produced completely independently in the United States. So that is a big distinction between the two. I would not doubt that American distribution companies have not seen The Wizard of the Kremlin yet, and will be seeing it just before Venice or at Venice. I still believe Jude Law is going to go lead. I think he is Olivia Colman in The Favorite, as we just referenced.
Totally. And if he does go lead, I think his awards chances really dwindle down a lot just because of the strength of that lead actor category that we talked about before and how many of those are gigantic best picture films where I feel like more often than not in supporting you can kind of get in some of those non-top heavy best picture movies. But I mean, we just saw last year The Apprentice found its way inside the lead actor category, but I would argue that there wasn't really a best picture leading actor that was really left on the outside looking in. But to round out my supporting actor lineup, I know I talked about Rental Family before, but I think regardless of its PCA placement, Brendan Fraser is someone who could be on the outside looking in or looking out. But I think if the movie does win PCA, that Akira Moto is the driving force behind the Rental Family acting nomination train. And that's why he currently isn't there at my fifth slot. We saw the trailer. He's crying in the trailer. He seems to have a very emotional arc, while maybe Fraser's is more comedic throughout. And that we've seen the Academy go out for some older performances, especially if it's their first time really in the award season race before. And at least looking at some of my next people in line, there's giant red flags screaming at me. While Amoto, regardless of my thoughts on Rental Family being the PCA winner or not, I think could be in the race because we know Searchlight's ability to campaign, especially in getting some of these not expected nominations in.
Do you have Springsteen in Best Picture?
I do not. I currently
Okay.
have Jeremy Allen White in. I currently have casting in, and I currently have sound in.
So if you don't have it in picture, you don't need it in supporting actor. I have it in picture, so I feel pretty obligated to keep Jeremy Strong in.
As you see with my five, I have four of those five movies in Best Picture, and my one outlier is Jude Law and Wizard of the Kremlin, which I think, as I've said before, will have a lot of relevance inside the race, as well as being an actor who really hasn't had his time to shine before. But for like Springsteen, I just, even if the film's in Best Picture, I don't think Stephen Graham or Jeremy Strong has to happen. The trailer didn't really give me any reason why either of them really need to be there. Both of those could kind of be in the same place as Garfield, where Alliance of Six, you can kind of get yourself in, but in other places, it misses out for stronger films like what Sinners could be. And if that's Lindo or if that's Caden, one of them could easily jump tick the Springsteen or One Battle After Another guys.
Also, let's talk quickly about Paul Mescal and Hamnet. I had
Hmm.
previously been off of him because I had heard rumors that his character's name wasn't even said until the last 5 minutes of the movie, and that he was kind of just like a background character. But what I'm hearing more now from the Vanity Fair article and from seeing the trailer is he seems to be really present in this movie. And I feel almost a little bit compelled to put him in my top five with what I've seen today in this trailer.
I definitely agree. If the film ends up being a Best Picture contender, I think he slides in. I currently still have Hamnet on the outside looking in, so that's why he's on my outside. And what you see above him is two people from two different movies. It's just we don't know which Sinners guy is the one getting campaigned more. At least from what I would assume, based off of how they were talking during the initial release of the movie, it would be Lindo. But I know a lot of people out there, myself included, prefer Caden's performance.
Okay, last question I have for you today. There are three supporting performances across supporting actor and supporting actress that feel like they could end up being campaigned in either category. So I want to ask you, if Emma Stone, Stellan Skarsgård, and Jude Law end up campaigning lead, would you put any of those three in your lead categories?
If Skarsgård goes lead, I think he would either be number one or number two. I think it would be very similar to like a Michelle Williams in the Fableman situation where it depends on the category that you go. One, I think, has a more clear road to victory, but the other one maybe more so fits what the role is supposed to be, but also may not have like the juice behind it to win in that category. And then I think for Jude Law, if he goes lead, barring like Jay Kelly, Marty Supreme, Springsteen, Begonia smashing, three of those failing, I think would be a very hard road to success because even with those five that I just mentioned before, you got to throw in Michael B. Jordan, you got to throw in DiCaprio, you got to throw in Brendan Fraser, Oscar Isaac, Wagner Moura, Daniel Day-Lewis. I think all those people would still be ahead of him if we moved him to the lead actor category.
Stellan Skarsgård going lead haunts my nightmares at this point. That's I don't want him to throw away his Oscar. I really don't want him to.
Neon is going to, they've shown that they're smart. They show that they know how to campaign. And I think this year, we talked about this in other episodes, it's new people in charge. Are they going to do new things this year? Are they going to do two movies? Or is it just going to be the sentimental value campaign? And I feel like if it's just the sentimental value campaign, there's no reason to move him to lead. But if you're trying to get other films some notoriety, if that's Accident, if that's No Other Choice, if that's even Life of Chuck, then maybe we see weird things happen and they do move Skarsgård to lead, or they do try to not focus as much on both sentimental value supporting actresses or something weird like that. But we have no reason to really think like that at this moment.
Anyways, that brings us to the end of today's acting predictions video. As always, let us know in the comments what you disagree with. I'm sure you already have. We always appreciate hearing what you have to say. We always read every comment. So thank you so much for participating in this community. And of course, join our Discord if you have not already. But as always, my name is Matt.
My name is Dill, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.